To install the Symterra Pulse system, you will need basic tools. Depending on the structure, you may need specific hardware. A voltmeter will be needed to verify the system is working properly. How you attach the capacitors will depend on the structure and the kit you purchased. With any kit, the capacitors need to be spaced no more than 6 feet apart. Lay out the roof capacitors all facing the same way and the last capacitor opposite. When the capacitor line is pulled taut, this will prevent the base of the capacitor from bending. To install the roof capacitor, you can screw them into the substructure and/or apply adhesive to the bottom of the unit. If you're only using adhesive, you will need to allow the proper cure time before installing the capacitor line. To install the metal clip capacitor, you simply slide the clip onto the edge. The metal clips can fit up to 1/4 inch thick. For the magnet clip capacitor, you attach the magnet to the substructure. With the capacitors in place, it is now time to wire up the system. The system does not need to loop back on itself. At your starting capacitor, you place a ring and spring. You can give the ring a twist to snug it up to the capacitor. On the first capacitor, take the 22-gauge stainless steel wire and run it through the spring. Take the wire and wrap on itself 5 to 6 times. Now, run the wire to the next capacitor and wrap around the capacitor once, going clockwise. For the system to operate correctly, all capacitors must be wrapped clockwise. Repeat this process until you have reached the last capacitor. When you reach the last capacitor, add a ring and spring and run the wire through and wrap on itself 5 to 6 times. Inspect the system to make sure the wire has not contacted any metal, as that will ground out the system. If you need to ground the system, locate a metal grounding source and wrap the stainless steel wire around it. Then, wrap the stainless steel wire around the mounting hardware or metal base of the capacitor. If needed, you can branch off the main line. Add a ring and spring to the capacitor and run the stainless steel wire through and wrap on itself 5 to 6 times. Continue down the line wrapping capacitors clockwise. On the last capacitor, add a ring and spring. If you encounter an obstacle in the way of your installation, you will need to create an insulated jumper to get around the obstacle. Measure the distance between the two capacitors. Cut a length of capacitor line a few inches longer. Strip each end 1 to 2 inches. When using a jumper, the capacitor line must be raised off the substrate to prevent contact. Run the capacitor line through the spring on one end and wrap exposed wire around the stainless steel wire 5 or 6 times. Repeat on the other side. Do not power the system on until all the components are installed. You should install the pulse box as close to the initial capacitor as possible. The sides of the unit have tabs for you to screw the unit onto the substructure. You can add epoxy to help secure the unit if needed. If you are installing on a metal structure, magnets can be mounted to the back. Wrap 5 or 6 times around the main stainless steel line. Take the other end with the barrel plug and insert into the capacitor output. Once the pulse box is mounted and the capacitor line is installed, you can power on the system. Plug the system into an outlet. To test if the system is working, take your voltmeter and place it near the capacitor to verify operation. If you have no power, first check to make sure the pulse box is plugged in. Then, verify there is power to the outlet with a voltmeter. Next, do a visual inspection to make sure the system has not contacted metal and grounded out the system. If capacitors are not registering power, make sure you did not wrap the wire in the wrong direction. If you created a jumper, make sure it is contacting the main wire and has not made any contact with bare metal. Always power down the system before performing any maintenance.